goal is to make this, well, to explain how this is put together. So let's start like this. The main focus would be on the legs because they are the ones that are important. Looking at these NURBS rings, the way you make them is up here in curves, and then you can shape them the way you want by right-clicking, and then you can shape them. You can also change their color here in the under. It's under. Let's see. Oh, it's always difficult when you show. Drawing overrides. So it will be display, drawing overrides, and here you can change the colors. Anyway, and then those are driving the rest of the rig through different types of constraints. All right. So first thing, if you have very large, that can be useful even if you won't be rigging. There's this way of setting how large a joint is seen. So under Windows, done. It's funny now, I can't find it. Anyway, here it is. But let me just show what it can do, and then maybe I can find it for you later. Joint size, and then you can set the joint size like this. And that can be good to know. So that's the first thing. Here is some geometry. It can be one piece. It can be a whole body. A lot of time, things are one body, especially or one mesh, especially for games. But it doesn't have to be one. Here it happens to be two. And it's very, very simple geometry. Here's a joint chain, so that consists of three points, and those are the important ones. The thing that is in between there isn't really doing anything, you could say. Joints can be moved once you made them, but only the top one, I would say, is good to move. The rest is always about rotation. Let me see if I can select there. Yes. So, yep, how do you make them? In the menu, skeleton, so you can find it here, skeleton. The next one is skin, there, and you also need a constraint, so the constraint is there. So they're all kind of all here. So here's the skeleton menu. So for this, I'll just delete that one. Yeah. So for this, I create joints. So now I'm in a special tool that makes joints. And I want to put it exactly there and exactly there and then there. So I know that these are vertices. So holding down V, I can click and it creates joints for me. Because I held down V, it was snapping there. It's good to have a direction for your knee so that the rig knows how to bend. So here's a quick and dirty way of moving that. Maybe a rigger will say, no, never do this, you're an idiot. I move tool, hold down D, and then I can move that joint a little bit so that in that sense it points a bit forward. That's important later. So that's it. And what you then do is that you bind your mesh to your bones, so that you will end up with something like this. So you simply select all your meshes. Can also be one mesh only, but in this case it's more than one. And then the bone structure root. So if it's a big skeleton, then select the root of it. And here in the skinning menu, you can bind skin. And then it's kind of done. There's of course all kinds of other things you need to do. You need to tell the mesh how to respond to the different joints, and you can do that through different techniques, weight, painting, and so on and so on. That's a whole story by itself. Okay, and since this is going to be a leg, it's great to have an IK that can do that. So the way you do it, make an IK, is that you select your structure there, and then in skeleton menu, you go to create IK handle, and again you can use this snapping by snapping to vertex, or I mean, I guess it's also snapping, would snap to joint, because they kind of see themselves as vertices, I suppose. Holding on V, I can click on the first one and then the last one. And now that is a little special controller that is the IK handle. So it controls the IK. There's an IK system now between this joint and that, and then the one in the middle is sort of following. Okay, and there's another thing when, so here I have bent, sort of, then now the knee is bent. To control where the knee is, you can set up something that does that. So that's the next little advanced thing, and then the story is over. So for that, you need to do something which is called to constrain the pole vector. And before you do that, you need to tell this rig that it needs, what way it wants to point, should point, so that everything is good. So you do that with this here in skeleton, set preferred angle, boom. And then you create some sort of controller. In my case, I made that one, but now I make a new one real quick here, over here, bring it over here. Yeah, I'll put it around there. And freeze transformation. That's important so that it goes to 0 like this. Anyway, so now I can use this thing to control where the knee is. So select first the thing that is going to be driven, and then the driver. And then in the constraint menu, there is this constraint pole vector. And yeah, in this quick, since I am showing this, it didn't work, but you know, it works here. So it has that effect. Yeah, so that can be the same principle for an arm or for something, you know, you can make anything, I guess, something that a digging machine that digs, or in this So the final part there was to make sure that I have a controller that can move the foot, because it's not very good to animate directly on this IK handle, even though that would work. So I just made another nerve circle and used that one over here. Also made sure that it's you should freeze the transformations for it also. In this case, I forgot that, but you should do that because when all your controllers needs to be zeroed out so that it's easy to return to the sort of normal pose. Yeah, the bind pose. Anyway, so yeah, so that would be through a parent constraint. So I would select the child first and then the parent, and then inside of the same menu as before, constraint, you can do a parent constraint. So I won't do that. Yeah, that's just clicking there. And then you get this to happen. There's something interesting with parent constraints that you can also tell it to what to constrain. In this case, I wanted everything to be constrained. Yeah, this is also the menu where, yeah, you can constrain many things, right?